There's a lot of back and forth about every issue these days, but when it comes down to it, the question of whether God exists is the only one that really matters, because the answer could affect us here and into eternity. The best way to approach any big question or decision in life is often to look at the consequences of the paths we choose to take. Simply put, what are the consequences if you are right, and what are the consequences if you are wrong? If people who believe in God are wrong, what are the downsides? First is money. Like any other organization, whether a business, your household, or a charity, most religions and churches ask for money to function and for community outreach. The money is still out of your bank account that you could have spent on a movie, coffee concert, or any number of things. However, what happens to that donated money? Almost all churches provide social services by feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, and assisting with disaster relief, among many other services. Further, because much of the community outreach is done through volunteers from the church, the dollars go much farther and help more people than even traditional charities can. And because the bulk of funds remain in the local communities, they may actually benefit the giver in many indirect ways. Also, one benefit is not tangible. When looking at one's life, there is a sense that these funds made a difference and mattered. In a way, it is a legacy that will live beyond you. So you have to ask yourself where you are at in life and what is important to you. There is a cost, but there may also be real offsetting factors as well. Time is another cost to you. Often there are weekly services online or in person to hear and learn about God. There can also be optional times like potlucks or trips that churchgoers will attend. To learn but also to grow closer to others in relationships. Time is important, but we have to ask ourselves, how much time do we waste watching TV or scrolling on our phones? Church time is time usually spent hearing principles of living life and interacting with your community. Speaking of meeting your community, will the person I'm sitting next to become my best friend, become my boss or partner, or even my husband or wife? So once again, like money, there is a cost in terms of a time commitment. Even if you are at home alone, watching a sermon on a podcast, YouTube, TV, or even just reading a religious text. Is this more a waste of time than spending it doing something else? Or is it worth moving things around? One wonders if the time spent is actually time invested in oneself. So, the main downsides if believers in God are wrong is that they spend money which helps them and their community, and time where they could meet new people that are important to them or lessons that can be applied to life. So downsides, yes there are, but severity, not so much at all. Now, what if people who believe in God are right? What are the consequences? Well, first, if they are right and God exists, then there is a heaven. The three largest religions in the world describe it similarly. For example, Hinduism describes heaven as full of gardens where there is no hunger, thirst, grief, fatigue, fear, or old age. Islam says heaven will have no hatred or injury. There will be gardens of perpetual bliss where families will be united. There will be comfort. All that is called for will be provided and entertainment will abound. The Bible says of heaven that it is a place of such beauty that it cannot be described in words. It is filled with love, peace, and joy. There will be no pain, worry, illness, or tears. We will be renewed, see our loved ones, and know each other. In other words, perfect and fulfilling in every way, a literal paradise. So if they are right, then the upside of that belief is huge. The second consequence is that heaven is forever. 70 to 80 years of life here are going to be like a blink of your eyes compared to eternity. So the question we ask and try to answer here in our short time on earth is as serious as it can get, because the consequences will last forever. What can be more important than what you will do, or where will you be forever? So if they are right and heaven exists, then it's like winning the lottery for eternity. So the third consequence we have to contemplate is hell. It must be considered separate from heaven because the outcome is so extremely different and of grave consequence. In Hinduism, it consists of frightful regions with intense darkness, with both physical and mental torment and perpetual suffering, with creatures that consume your flesh and souls cooked in boiling oil and fiery regions. In Islam, it is described as a bottomless pit of agony and a blazing fire that will burn flesh only to be renewed and burned again. Boiling putrid water will be given to drink, and there will be endless torture and pain. The Bible describes hell as an eternal darkness and separation from God, a blazing furnace where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And if heaven is forever, that means hell is as well. That means pain and torment forever. This is a thought so unpleasant that few people take more than a moment to think about it. But if we are to contemplate the consequences of a decision, we must weigh heavily both the positives and negatives. So we must conclude two things about what happens if people that believe in God are right. First, unlike the time and money issues discussed prior, where the consequences are not that great, that is not the case when it comes to the eternal consequences. They are significant in contrast. The reward for being right is amazing, while the penalty for being wrong is more horrible than one can fathom. There is a concept called asymmetric risk that basically means that the risk someone takes in one direction is significantly different from the potential gain or loss they could face. When it comes to the issue of believing in God for believers, the result is that they risk very little, some time and money that may have helped both themselves and their community, in comparison to the huge reward they will gain if they are correct, namely, heaven. On the other hand, if someone that does not believe in God is right, then what they may be gaining is also relatively insignificant, some time and money. Unfortunately, if they are wrong, they still save that time and money, but will spend eternity in a horrible place beyond our worst imaginations. You have free will to believe whatever you want to believe. For every action, there is a reaction, and for every decision, there is an outcome. No matter what you choose to believe, make sure to understand the consequences, especially when they are of such immense magnitude.